So there are my titles. Maybe the most important one today is I am a professor at Weill Cornell and graduate of the CUMC, as we used to call it. And I must say I'm an extremely proud graduate today. I think this program is absolutely fantastic and is a challenge to the gray hairs here to pay attention to this and to make sure it's part of our everyday training of our medical students. I am a medical oncologist. I'm not an IT person. I've had no training. I've also had no training in molecular biology. It didn't exist when I went to Cornell. I am what I call an early adopter. I owned a Commodore 64. Those of you that don't know what that is, you could Google it. And I brought something into my house early on called the internet, and my kids told me it was really lame and stupid. So I lived through that. But that's my extent of IT. So what's the problem we're trying to solve? Well, it was sort of a few problems. One of them, we called it the information deluge, and a very specific aspect of it, and that is having the right information to you, a practitioner, when you're taking care of a particular human being. And we show here a couple of diagrams of things you're used to. One is the exponential rise in medical information, just publications. But I think one thing I didn't appreciate at the beginning was the varying quality. I now get between 10 and 20 emails a day from some crazy journal or meeting or symposium, and I can't seem to get rid of them, actually. If somebody knows how to do that, I'd really appreciate that. But think about it. If you taught a computer to read literature, it'd be reading that literature. So how do you tell a computer that it's totally bogus? It's not refereed, it's not peer-reviewed, it's bogus. And there's a new one popping up every day. The other issue is this genomic one. And again, I'll pick on my class at Cornell. There was no molecular biology. DNA was something you learned about in biochemistry class. So suddenly, we know we're getting this kind of thing. And it's been pointed out to me that it looks a lot like this. It does bear it. This is just a personal example of this information deluge. I am a thoracic medical oncologist. I really only deal in one disease, in lung cancer. This is just 1 month's worth of paper journals. I'm still a paper journal guy. The other thing is, again, this interaction with molecular biology, again, something I'm totally untrained for. We have a standard platform. We test for almost 500 genes in any patient with cancer. This is the cool technology that can do that. This is the 468 genes that we look at. But this is the bottom line to somebody like me. This is what winds up on a doctor's desk. We have a prettier one now. This one is from a couple of years ago, but better makes the point. And here's the money part of it. What the heck does this mean for this human being sitting there? And the truth is, this is really an important thing because it identifies a target. It's a driver mutation. There are drugs available that can be given for a patient with a cancer that has this driver mutation. So this is really important. But what the heck is this? And this can be improved upon. So in 2011, MSK decided to partner with IBM. IBM had this Watson technology. We had kind of watched Jeopardy, and I must admit I knew jack about what Watson really was when I saw Jeopardy. I thought it just got to the internet faster. It wasn't connected to the internet, actually. And why, though? We wanted to improve access to quality care. We wanted to make MSK a leader, and much like the students that put this together today, you want to be leading here. You want this part of your education, and you want to, I love that analogy before about the puck. You want to be thinking about where the puck's going to be when you're at the peak of your career 20 years from now. And lastly, we thought we had some unique data expertise, and we could also use the information we gathered to do that. This is Watson, very simply. Murthy, are you going to speak about Watson in general, about the technology of it? Okay. Massive parallel computing. The core of it, though, is natural language processing. It's cognitive computing, cloud-based. So this is the other part of Watson. I mean, you can't, again, no disrespect to my friends at IBM, but it's kind of there for everything right now. You can't watch the US Open or the Masters and hear these commercials. And it has led to a certain kind of expectation. Can your doctor know everything known in medicine? I think the answer to that still is no, but you may not may not know that by watching the commercial. So what do? Actually, I work with IBM engineers, and I'm kind of a content expert. And the idea here is to take the information about the human being you're going to see, get all the information about the illness that that human being has, be it medical literature, guidelines, consensus statements, genomic data, whatever it might be, and to put it together when that person is there with you and use that in the decision-making process. I spend a huge amount of time with the engineers with natural language processing. One thing about medicine, and the students know this already, it's a whole new language. And each subspecialty in medicine has its own language too. I mean, just think about it. A computer sees the phrase T2. What does that actually mean? It could mean the second thoracic vertebral body. It could be a stage of cancer, the T2 tumor size. Or it could be all of the T2 weighted images in an MRI study. And it doesn't know. I mean, it has to be taught how to do that. So we do that. Also the literature. I think there was a misunderstanding of how readable the medical literature was, and also how complete it was. There are very, very few situations where you have randomized clinical trial data about how to take care of people. And a great example of that is the elderly. The average age of somebody with lung cancer is 71. The average age on clinical trials is in the 60s. And God, you know, we have people coming in now that are 85. There's no literature on those people. It's all an extrapolation. It's just not there to analyze. And one way we've gotten around this is curated publications. We do have to go through the publications and find the ones that are critical, and then teach the system that this is a critical one. This is kind of what the output looks today. This is what the doctor is seeing when the information from the patient is matched against that. This is a patient with lung cancer. It has no oncogenic driver. It doesn't say that up there, but it has expression of the PD-L1 protein, which suggests that it would be a tumor that would respond to immunotherapy. And it offers you the 3 available immunotherapy drugs for a patient with that expression. Now, just from a literature standpoint, there is only one of those has a phase 3 randomized trial that says that it is effective in this situation. That's pembrolizumab. The nivolumab and the atezolizumab are in there because the data is that they're equivalent, but there's absolutely no trial data to say that. And if you talk to the different companies that make these drugs, they would absolutely deny that these drugs are the same thing. But again, experts in the field will tell you that their mechanism of action, their activity is about the same. Chemotherapy drugs have been pushed down, as you can tell from the TV commercials. The other nice thing about this is just a couple of features. The treatment plan is on the far left. The first thing is it tells you to select a clinical trial. And you know, there's so many problems in oncology that need to be solved. Getting more people on trials will do that. So when every time you see a patient, clinical trial is on the table, and also it can link to a listing of clinical trials specific to that patient, so it can be discussed and at least be given as an option to the patient. The other thing it does is it tells the whole course of therapy for the patient. So this is somebody with a cancer that was removed and then needs systemic therapy. It's a simpler example here, but it talks about the entire trajectory for that patient. You know, how long you're going to get chemotherapy, when you're going to have your surgery. And that's something you don't see, because usually each specific treatment is siloed. Where is it being used now? It's interesting that the biggest number of folks using it are in Asia. A big healthcare system in India and East Asia has used it, and their specific use is they have 20-some medical centers across multiple countries, and they wanted to make sure that there was a consistency in their plans of care across their entire healthcare system, and the system today could do that. Another group doing it is I'll call it a destination medicine establishment, Bumrungrad in Bangkok. There, they have a couple of issues. Number one, they have physicians with all kinds of disparate training, disparate areas of expertise. They may not have expertise in all the different kinds of cancer that they see working in that institution. The second thing is they need plans of care that can be shipped out to the countries where the patients that they are seeing will ultimately go and get a great part of their care, and this system can provide that and give it that information to take with them. What we're doing now is we started with breast, lung, and colorectal cancer. We've built out a whole bunch of other cancers, and we're doing that now. So hopefully by the early part of next year, we'll have 80+% of the cancers there. Just to mention that this space is we're not the only ones here. There are all kinds of folks with these different kinds of platforms. I would say that while they are used sporadically, that none have taken over the market by any means. And some have bit the dust. Again, there was a lot of activity with MD Anderson that they actually had partnered with IBM, and that collaboration did not work out for them, unlike ours. So a couple other possibilities here for it, and things that we're very interested in moving forward. I think the first is patient-reported outcomes. I don't know how many of you saw this article in JAMA, but this, getting to some of the earlier presentations today, this was an amazing article, and I was very lucky to be part of this. This was all engineered by Ethan Bash on our faculty and also at the faculty at UNC. So what he did here, he gave in a tablet-based format to patients basically in the waiting room 15 questions. And these 15 questions were about various aspects of their care or side effects of therapy. That information was then pushed to the healthcare providers caring for that patient. So if they said that I had more shortness of breath that day, that went to the healthcare provider and they acted upon it. So what was the cool thing here? The people where that data was collected, pushed to the healthcare provider, they lived months longer. A survival improvement simply by asking these 15 questions on a tablet computer and working with it. To the medical students, why did this work? It worked because human beings saw this information and then acted upon it, and then use their physician skills to care for those people that said that they had these problems. What technology did is it pushed it to the fore. It made it out there in every patient. Again, this was published earlier this year. This is a great, great opportunity. I think people are grappling now with how to do this. But those of you that look at clinical trials in cancer care, a 6-month improvement in overall survival in a bunch of very serious metastatic cancers is actually huge. FDA approves drugs sometimes based on 2 weeks, up to 2 months of approval. And this is just by talking to people. Shared decision-making, something I'm learning about more and more. We're very lucky in our behavioral group to have Jada Hamilton. What she is doing is meeting with patients here. How do patients see this? How do they feel it can help them? How can we best design a system to interact with them? And this is a research project that she has initiated. She's had a few abstracts of this already, and hopefully they'll get published soon. Medical education and simulation. I think this is a great opportunity for that. When I showed this to a group of our nurses, the first thing they said, this is fantastic because we have staff 24/7. How at 3 a.m. do we get information out, not just about going to up to date and looking how to take care of lung cancer, how to take care of lung cancer in this particular patient. And it could be particularly the patient that they're taking care of that night, and this could give them access to that. And simulation, obviously, I think our research fellows are already using this already. They can easily go to the medical literature, they can go to the guidelines for cancer care, but what they don't know is what is Sloan Kettering's specific recommendation for this patient, and this gives them access to that. Obviously, for better or worse, they're at Sloan Kettering trying to learn how to be doctors. We have a beautiful genomic annotation system, OncoKB, that some of you may know. We can link that to this. Clinical trials matching, we can link that as well. We also are having a system, not unlike that second opinion system that you heard about talked later, MSK Direct Patient Access, and it can do that. So what do we have here? We have this deluge of information about an individual patient. And one thing we have that we have tried very much to integrate in this system is this group of people down here, what I would like to call the learned colleague. Very common in medicine when you're faced with a new situation, when you're unsure of a medical decision, what do? You go to that person who was your mentor, who you trust, who has had experience in that area, and ask them, what would you do with this situation? And operationally, that's how we've seen this system, that it's going to be a colleague to assist you the same way you'd go to a colleague for help. So Watson is kind of in the middle of it. Our vision also is not to have Watson just talk to the doctor, to have Watson talk to the patient. And again, a reminder, the decision is ultimately made here. Watson is just like another piece of information, but a very, very sophisticated one that can pull in patient information, pull in a wealth of information from the medical literature and about the field, and can bring it at the point of care. That said, it's not easy. David Ferrucci is considered the father of IBM Watson. Is he still considered that, Murthy? Some say he is. Anyway, this is what he said. You don't realize how hard this really is. And I think we've seen that. We've been at it for 6 years now. You saw the few diseases we've had. And it's going to take a long time. It's going to be worth it. Again, just like in the last speech, it's not a question of if, it's only a question of when. One thing I'll give a shout out to IBM that they have stuck with it, because this is not easy. People told me that other companies, many of them I listed before, had this all figured out. They'd have an answer in no time. They haven't had an answer in no time. But IBM has stuck with it to try to do that. And with that, I'll end. Thank you.
Future of Care is New York City's premier community for healthcare innovation. To learn more, subscribe to our channel and visit our website at futureofcare.nyc.